Good evening. We are Chris and Amber Pitcock, and we are honored to share our story with you tonight. Our family's PKAN journey began with our son, John Luke. He was born absolutely perfect. A big, beautiful, healthy baby. John Luke was always a boy, rough and tough, but such a joy. Everything seemed perfectly normal at first. He rolled, sat up, and even started pulling up to a standing position early. I distinctively remember people telling me, "This baby is going to walk at 9 months old," and I truly believed he would. John Luke would try relentlessly to walk for the next 6 months. He finally took his real first steps around 16 months. By that time, we were noticing that he also seemed to struggle with fine motor skills compared to his peers. Being a clumsy kid with poor balance, accidents were common. ER trips requiring glue and stitches were nothing out of the ordinary. We did all the therapies, all the testing, but everything always checked out. Deep down, we knew something wasn't right. But John Luke was such a smart kid and worked hard to improve his motor skills. He was always so resilient. Around John Luke's 5th birthday, he just stopped using his right arm. It was like he had a stroke and was no longer able to use it. We immediately called his neurologist, and a second MRI was ordered. The months that would follow were heartbreaking. Our sweet boy was on a downhill decline at a record pace. His balance was way off. He was really high on his tippy toes and falling constantly. He struggled to even play with his tractors and farm animals. Dystonia was taking over his body. The MRI showed the hallmark eye of a tiger sign, and so genetic testing was ordered to confirm the diagnosis. All the testing and then waiting was absolute torture. We finally received the news. John Luke had Pantothenate Kinase-Associated Neurodegeneration with brain iron accumulation. John Luke's PKAN diagnosis came days before I would give birth to his little sister, Gracie James. At that appointment, we learned it was an autosomal recessive trait, and the baby would have a 25% chance of having it as well. Overwhelmed, heartbroken, and confused, we left that appointment and immediately started reaching out to the only PKAN specialist in the country. We were fortunate to get an appointment quickly and traveled across the country, Kentucky to Portland, to see them in person. There, we learned of the Co-AZ clinical trial that was just about to begin, and we were filled with so much hope. We came home and tried to live as normal as possible, cherishing every good day. John Luke started kindergarten part-time with an assistant. We were constantly readjusting to accommodate his ever-changing needs. By his 6th birthday, he was unable to walk. He was in a wheelchair and had special seats, but none were comfortable for him. Uncontrollable twisting movements made it difficult for him to even sit in the floor or on the couch. John Luke also became very spastic, and his entire body would stiffen like a board. We would literally take turns holding and laying with him around the clock. If he was in our arms, in our specific position with his knees bent, we could somewhat break the dystonia. Eventually, it was time for a G-tube. Our strong boy had lost all independence, even being forced back into diapers. We went to the hospital with our John Luke and came out with a different child. I can't put into words how horrific the G-tube experience was. John Luke had never been in the hospital, and all of the added stimuli made him very anxious, which in turn sent his dystonia into overdrive. He was arching so badly his toes were nearly touching the back of his head in a backwards C position. Doctors were not familiar with PKAN, and we didn't know enough at the time to advocate for him. We were fortunate to have a neurologist come along that had seen PKAN during his residency. He quickly put a plan in place and has been our neurologist since that day. The days, weeks, and months that would follow still haunt me. John Luke was on so much medicine to treat his dystonia, but the medicine caused constipation and urinary retention, which led to more dystonia. It was a vicious cycle. Poor baby didn't sleep. Nobody slept. He was terrified of his feeding pump. He vomited so much. Around 5 months after G-tube, John Luke would suffer an ileus. His gut had completely stopped moving. We had to get him off some of the meds, but he had to have them to keep the dystonia from literally breaking bones from the uncontrollable twisting and arching. The 35-day hospital stay for the baclofen pump is its own story. From a 16-hour dystonia storm to being intubated and sedated, extubation and reintubation, learning to place a catheter, and the horrific withdrawals. It was a whirlwind. We brought home a new kid once again. The baclofen pump allowed John Luke's body to be calm. We were amazed, and so were the doctors. The kid just smiled constantly. He could watch TV again without getting too worked up. He loved Andy Griffith. While John Luke was unable to speak, he never lost his contagious laugh and bright smile. He was able to sit in his special seats once again. It was a dream come true, but it wouldn't last long. John Luke had a terrible time with secretions, and we were constantly having to suction him. He hated the suction. We were desperately trying to stay on top of his airway issues, but we were out of options. John Luke screamed every waking minute of his last week on Earth. We believed he figured out that through yelling he could exhale. One of the unique things with PKAN is they never lose their cognitive abilities. John Luke was the strongest, most amazing kid I have ever known. I have focused on his PKAN journey, but I could write even more about his sweet personality and kind heart. John Luke loved the Lord, and nothing thrilled him more than singing his favorite gospel hymns. During the dark days, the one thing that seemed to ease him, aside from being in his mama's arms, was listening to Alan Jackson's gospel album on repeat. John Luke's bright light continues to shine as we share his story with you here tonight. He passed 4.5 years ago at the age of 7 years and 3 months. We can't wait to hold our baby again in heaven one sweet day. We are blessed to have so much of John Luke in his little sister, Gracie James. As you can tell, she is a spitting image of John Luke, and unfortunately, she too has PKAN. Gracie was diagnosed shortly after birth, and was actually the youngest child in the Co-AZ clinical trial. She started treatment at 7 months old, and received the drug for 2 years. Like John Luke, Gracie has always struggled with anxiety, insomnia, vision issues, and of course, poor balance with extreme toe walking. Our tiny tot turned 6 in July. Don't let her looks fool you. She is a fierce and true warrior. While she is no longer able to walk, she is still scooting and crawling everywhere. I'm proud of her grit and determination, but it is extremely difficult to keep her safe. Gracie had a feeding tube placed in January. The majority of her speech is unintelligible, but she still tries to communicate with everyone she meets. It is cliché to say, but to know her is to love her. Gracie James deeply loves everyone, and if you are in reach, you are getting a hug. I scolded her once for trying to hug a stranger, to which she replied, "But I love people." Gracie James is a daddy's girl through and through. She is the absolute best big sister to Eden. I'm so thankful our girls were able to enjoy another summer together. It was wonderful to see Gracie in her floaty, swimming all over the pool. For a few hours a day, she had her independence back and can go and do whatever she wanted, giggling, laughing, and having the best time. We are afraid to say it, but we feel like Gracie's progression has plateaued. John Luke's progression never slowed down, and we never got ahead of it. Gracie has been holding her own for a while now. We are so thankful and pray she could hang on until the treatment becomes available. To be honest, we thought the unknown was scary with John Luke, but being able to recognize the signs and symptoms and knowing the timeline is more than we can bear some days. Once again, we find ourselves hanging on to hope with the advancement of gene therapy. I know in my heart a cure is coming, just praying Gracie, Loic, and all the others don't run out of time, and most of all praying for our babies. God bless Chris and Amber Pitcock.
We're really appreciative of Shireen and the efforts that she's doing regarding fundraising. I just wish that the world would be able to see, if they could see PKAN the way that we see PKAN, donations would not be a problem.
Dr. Hayflick and Hogarth have worked 30 years on just PKAN.
That many years invested in something. I want her so much to see the fruit of her labor. This gene therapy might not be a cure for our daughter because she just don't have enough time, but there's going to be a lot of kiddos out there that will benefit from it.
In our PKAN support group, we're often talking to friends that live in India, that are in Mexico, Brazil, like all over. We're all communicating for that same cause, and we're all praying and hoping for a cure. You don't want any family to have to go through what we went through.
The gene therapy is what I would call our great hope. We have that great hope, but we have to be able to get the money to achieve that hope.
Your money can result in saving the lives of our children. PKAN warriors need this gene therapy. Please make a donation today to fund the PKAN gene therapy. For PKAN warriors, this gene therapy is our great hope. To donate, go to lovingloic.org/donate. Thank you.